I thought maybe you could do it from your side. All right. So we're here to talk about budgeting for post-secondary. So we have a few students here in the classroom today. So practicalmoneyskills.ca. So I'm going to go through and we're going to rework the budget on what this would look like for post-secondary. But the reason I like this website, if you're going away to school, if you ever want to buy your first car, I suggest you go to one of these calculators. It'll tell you if you know the financing rate and you know the term, it'll tell you what your payments are going to be. You can work on some budget and some goals. And when you leave post-secondary and you get your first job, you can start talking about career and retirement. There's calculators to help you with that. If you get into some credit problems or debt problems, you can figure out a payment plan on how to get yourself into that situation. Plan for education and college, family and life. When you buy your first house, this will tell you what your payments are going to be for your first house. If you know the price of the house, how long you want to finance it, your very first loan, whether it be a car loan or a loan for a side-by-side or a boat. And then of course, savings and investing. If you ever want to decide to save and invest, there's calculators on here that'll show you how to make the best of your money. Okay, so it's a great website. It's a Canadian website, lots of financial literacy, and all these calculators are all pre-formatted to give you an idea of how to handle that money. All right, so what we're going to do today is we're going to take a look at budgets. And what we're going to do is we're going to do not a back to school budget, but we're going to rework a budget from scratch. So here, it's all pre-formatted. So income, we have 1245 coming in from post-secondary. So we're not going to do any income number two, not going to do any interest, pension, etc. So housing, Montana, where do you plan on going? What city? Because it'll depend on how much maybe the rent is going to be. Barrie. How much do you think, do a shared accommodation, 2-bedroom or even a bachelor, how much do you think housing is going to cost you, apartment? Any guesses? Vince, Aiden? Barrie, Ontario. What do you think the minimum would be? Oh, a private resident? Oh, way too low.
Way too low.
I'm going to say probably closer to $600 if you're shared accommodation. 600 minimum. All right. I think a 2-bedroom is probably going to be about $1,200. So 600. How much for food? If you were to budget for food per month. So think about it maybe per week and we'll times it by 4. So we're talking about pizza delivery. We're talking about skip the dishes. We're talking about going to the grocery store. What do you think you would budget a week in order to live? 3 meals a day or 2 or 1 if you're only eating once a day and you're fasting. What are we spending? Any ideas? Roughly, we're just trying to budget. Let's do it for a week, 7 days. Or how much a day, and then we'll times it by 7. $200 or $300 a week? Okay, so let's say 800, if groceries were 800, all right? That's including your, let's face it, when you go, you're gonna wanna order pizza, you're gonna splurge a little bit, you might spend a little bit extra. So actually, let's move that to 600. Let's say it's 150, okay? Which you should be able to get by on. Transportation, car payment, and insurance. Is anyone here driving? No. So what do you think a bus pass is for a month if you had to take the bus? If you were to guess a bus pass in the city per month, would $100 probably be enough?
It's about $150.
150 for a bus pass?
For a bus pass, yeah.
150. Medical costs are 0, of course. Educational costs, we're just going to leave that at 0. But here we can add an item. So let's add one. What else are you going to experience in the city? What else are you going to want to have? Let's start with this. Most of you are going to need one of these, right? So, cell phone. How much is a cell phone plan? Let's say your phone is already paid for, but you're just on a plan. Your parents aren't picking up the tab. How much? You guys have phones, so how much are they? $60. Okay. Let's add another. So you said entertainment, Aiden. How much per month on entertainment would you budget? probably going out on the weekends. Could be a movie, could be you're going bowling. Any guesses? $50, so $200 total. Anything else you're going to experience? So we got accommodations. They're all paid for, heat, hydro, electric, everything's included. We got our food, got some entertainment, our cell phone. What about this? I know you all like to do it. You all like to shop. Need a new hoodie, need some new running shoes. What would you budget on average per month for some clothes? We'll just talk about the essentials. On average, because I know some months are going to be different. How much would you spend on clothes? $80. Okay. So you might buy a couple new items. Anything else we're going to run into? We got transportation to and from school, clothes, got food, got shelter. Okay, internet. Maybe we share that if we're in a shared accommodations. So I'll put internet in there. How much? Your portion. Let's pretend we're sharing a 2-bedroom for $600. Your portion. It's about $90 depending on what plan you're on. So we'll say $45. Okay. In the city, it might be a little bit cheaper. Anything else we could add to that list that you think you're living on your own? Good for now. Let's say that is good. Okay. Look at this. Total expenses $1,735. I come down here. I hit calculate. Look at this. Total income from post-secondary is $1,245. Based on those assumptions, $1,735. The bottom line is that I have a debt of $490 or a deficit of $490. So where would I make that up? How am I going to make that up? If that budget were to work for me and I wanted to do that at post-secondary, how do I come up with the $490? What am I going to have to do? Going to have to get a job, right? So 500, if I did $500 divided by the new minimum wage, which is 14.35, 34 hours divided by 4, gonna have to find a job that has 10 hours a week somewhere, right? So that's like one shift at Tim Hortons or Subway, or maybe I'm working as a janitor. It doesn't matter. I'm working part-time as a student somewhere. Okay.
Another good way to make up for that $500 is starting to look into bursaries and scholarships. Inspire is a really good one. Most of the time they require essay questions. There's usually 5 of them. So I would just start Googling that and getting those essays already ready. So that when the time comes to apply to Inspire, which gives you a wide variety of bursaries and scholarships that you can apply to, you're ready to go instead of feeling overwhelmed and trying to rush to get it done. Yeah. You will automatically be brought into an entry bursary if you're going to college. And then there's also bursaries and scholarships available on your school website. So Montana, if you're going to go to Georgian, what I would do is I would go to the Georgian website and look at their bursaries and scholarships. Also, when you become a student on your student portal, there's going to be a spot where it says bursaries and scholarships that you can apply to help cover this cost. OSAP is another thing that you can apply for. And because you're First Nations, you can apply for what is called the grant portion only, which is money that you don't have to pay back. However, if you are not successful within that first semester, right, and you get like say $6,000 from OSAP because it's a grant portion only, that grant portion turns into a loan if you're not successful and you have to pay that back. So you got to really watch and really read what you're looking into and applying for.
Yeah. So yeah, lots of options. Or if bursaries and part-time job is not, then you need to go through, either find cheaper rent, have to cut back on your food, because we did budget 600. So Vince, that's a lot. Maybe if we trim that back to 400. Okay. So basically this here is a good tool just for you to think about what it is I need to have. And the thing is that when you start falling behind in some of these monthly expenditures and things aren't getting paid, that causes stress. Okay. You don't need that stress and anxiety. So if you rework your budget and you realize that you either need to apply for a bursary or like Janet said, OSAP, or trim back some of your expenditures. Okay. It's so easy to get caught up in a trap where people are going out and they're entertaining and going out to a nightclub or having pizza every Friday night. But if you can't afford that and it's not in your budget, you're going to have to say no. Those are some tough decisions. But otherwise, some of these bills are going to fall behind. Okay. I put cell phone in there because I don't think it's a want anymore. It's almost a need. People use that device for alarm clock. They use it for texting, communications, right? They do their homework on it. Some people could argue, well, get rid of the cell phone. And that could be their argument, but I think it's more of a need than a want anymore. We're kind of tuned into our cell phones. Everyone has one at this point. So yeah, any questions on that? And like I said, if you ever decide to buy a car or whatever, I'll just show you real quickly. How much can you afford? It'll even tell you how much of a car you can afford. So based on a down payment, how often you want to play it. So if you're going out to buy your first car and you have a part-time job, this calculator will tell you how much of a car you can afford, whether 5 or 6 or 8,000. So at least it gives you an idea of what you can afford for a car. And as you know, $5,000 doesn't get you much for a car, but you might get a good deal, might find something that will get you by for a couple of years. So if nothing else, remember this website is one of the best. And like I said, it'll help you with almost anything. All right. And I encourage you to get a credit card, $500 limit, make sure you're responsible. What it'll do is it'll kick into Equifax and TransUnion. You'll start to build a credit score. So when you go to get your first loan, it'll say Montana Trudeau's been using credit responsibly since 2022. It's going to beef up your credit score. It's going to help you when you apply for your very first car loan or whatever. So, all right. Post-secondary might tell you that maybe, do you ever say that's a bad idea?
Nope.
Oh, because it is a great idea. $500. Activate it, buy a pop with it. Doesn't matter to me. Pay it off within 21, the grace period. After that, it's going to say, Aiden, Vince, and Montana are using credit responsibly just by using that credit card. Because they're going to try to sell you a credit card. But don't do a $2,000 balance if you're not responsible. Do a $500 balance.
Something that's manageable.
Yeah. And not only that, but not only is it good for building a credit history and a credit score, but like you need it for booking a hotel, a car reservation, doing concert tickets, right? It's important to have a credit card. Okay. Some people say, oh, I don't believe in credit cards. Those are typically people who aren't responsible for it. But the average Joe who wants to have a credit card and can use it responsibly, it's handy for lots of things. Okay. Or like when your stepson's water and sewer gets cut off and it's $3,600 and some guys are going to beat him up if we don't turn it back on, and you can put a $500 deposit on your credit card. That's a good example for emergency uses. Okay. That's a true story, by the way. All right. Or I wouldn't have told you that.
So just so you know, another thing that you need to just be mindful of is you only receive $1,000 book allowance. Sometimes, depending on what program you go into, $1,000 for books is not very much. Some of your textbooks are anywhere between $100 and $300 for one. Okay, so just be mindful and just think, like I might need additional funds for books, right? If you're going into like trades, so mechanics, some of your toolkits are going to be like $2,500. Again, that's not guaranteed that post-secondary will cover that. So you just need to be mindful and really research what program you're going to go into and just be prepared that some of that financial responsibility will be back on you. Okay.
There are secondhand books, though, eh?
There is secondhand books. Yep. Yeah. And we encourage, doing that. You just have to make sure that you review the edition. Again, your student portal is going to be your best friend once you get into school because it'll tell you exactly what edition it can be. The bookstore too, if you communicate with them, they can tell you what will work and what won't work for used books. So just make sure you don't get caught buying used books that aren't going to be relevant to the current course.
Well, there's also the case where you buy a textbook only to find out a couple of weeks in that it's just going to be a resource and you probably didn't need it, right?
Yeah.
So, anyway. So yeah, that's all I had. I don't know if you have any questions, but if you can remember that, it'll help you out with a lot of different situations. So it's a good tool to have. There's other tools, but that's a good tool because it's come up with almost every scenario that you're going to run into in your whole life, not just post-secondary. All right, a good financial
I have
literacy.
something to add.
Sure.
They could also access like dollars through, they can file their taxes for their tuition. I think they usually make that available through the student portal when you're in school. So just keep an eye out for it. And when you file for your income tax, you can claim the tuition.
Oh, yes. Perfect. You guys have any questions? Aiden, Montana? Good. All right.